When a Hollywood movie star meets a mysterious Spanish beauty, it's love at first sight. Their romance seems genuine until people start to wonder, is this Chica for real? Welcome to Dead Sleep, True Crime for Bedtime. I'm Nancy Miller, the creator of Dead Sleep, and I want to wish you a Merry Griftmas with a good old-fashioned scam story. The last few episodes of the podcast were pretty heavy, so I wanted to share something a little simpler, a little shorter, where the stakes are not quite so high. There are a lot of famous scammers out there. George Santos, Samuel Bankman-Fried, the Tinder swindler guy. But this scam is interesting because it's still going. It's the grift that keeps on giving. Speaking of giving, if you like the show, give it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Ratings and reviews really help other people find the show. With that, let's settle into bed, get cozier under the covers, close our eyes, and get ready to fall dead asleep. With Dead Sleep, True Crime for Bedtime. Our story begins at a trendy vegan restaurant in New York City. One of the restaurant's most famous customers was a Hollywood actor named Alec Baldwin. One day in 2011, Alec sat down at his table and scanned the restaurant, as he always did, for a 30-something woman named Sarma. Sarma was the chef and owner of the restaurant. She was a stunning blonde he had a crush on. But Sarma's interest in Alec was as raw and cold as her vegan food. When the 54-year-old former star of 30 Rock hinted that he wanted a special someone to share his life with, Sarma suggested he adopt a dog. That night in 2011 would change everything. This time when Alec looked around, he saw someone new. A smoldering brunette stood near the restaurant door. Alec was a famous actor who dated his fair share of beautiful and interesting women, mostly actresses. But this woman captivated him. He overheard her speaking in Spanish, and when she and her friends were heading to the door, Alec approached her, his ice-blue gaze melting into her warm brown eyes. "I must know you," he said, and he handed her his business card. I didn't know actors had business cards, but, well, Alec Baldwin did. And a good thing, too. Because this woman, the future love of his life, had no idea who Alec Baldwin was. To be fair, she was 28. She was barely alive when Alec was a bona fide movie star. Add to that she wasn't really from here. She spent most of her life in Spain, on an island along the Mediterranean called Mallorca. When Alec asked her name, it rolled off of her tongue like a cat's purr. Hilaria. Alec was captivated by Hilaria, and maybe part of the attraction was that she didn't know who he was. Didn't know anything about his nasty public divorce, his phone scandals, his political rants that earned him the nickname the Bloviator. She had zero nostalgia for the hunky Alec from Prelude to a Kiss. And she definitely didn't know that in the 80s, he made a movie with Michelle Pfeiffer called Married to the Mob. In that film, he played a gangster nicknamed Cucumber Frank DeMarco. In retrospect, she might have wished she had. Because it was the humble cucumber, the green-seeded botanical fruit, that would reveal Hilaria's epic scheme. But we'll get to all of that in a momentito. Back in 2012, After dating for a year, Alec and Hilaria married at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. It was a star-studded event, though Hilaria was blissfully oblivious because she grew up in Spain, she said, without a television. Didn't even know how to turn on a TV. She acknowledged that life as an immigrant had its challenges, but Hilaria adapted quickly. Hilaria and Alec had children, a lot of children, and in honor of her heritage, she gave them Spanish names, such as Eduardo and Carmen. As a Hollywood outsider, Hilaria made celebrity inroads faster than you can say, "Y tu mama también." She signed on with CAA, her husband's talent agency, scored several Spanish-language TV hosting gigs. A yoga instructor when she met Alec, Hilaria expanded her fitness expertise into a Goop-style wellness brand. She said she'd built an unbreakable mind-body connection, and she could help you do the same. It was called the Living Clearly method. As her profile grew on social media, who she really was anything but clear. Where was Hilaria's actual mind and body connected to, people wondered? Spain or somewhere else? New York is a huge anonymous city. But the second you become moderately famous, everybody says they knew you when. For Hilaria, rumors swirled that her whole Hispanic identity, one that she promoted on the cover of magazines like Hola, was potentially suspect. Which brings us to that fateful mishap with the cucumber. While promoting her wellness brand, Hilaria appeared on live TV to show how she made gazpacho, which she called gazpacho, Spain's signature chilled tomato soup. During her cooking demonstration, Hilaria reached for un pepino, as she struggled to remember the actual word in English, adding, "How do you say?" until the correct English word, cucumber, finally came to her. Hilaria later called it a brain fart, or as she might have said, un pedo cerebral. But for those who suspected Hilaria wasn't who she claimed to be, this video mishap was an obnoxious, audacious, artificial display. And for one woman, the cucumber was the last straw. It was December 2020, the height of the pandemic and peak holidays. The weather in New York was freezing cold, but somewhere in the Baldwin home, someone was having a meltdown. It started when Hilaria noticed a series of rude comments on her Instagram feed. Her whole brand was about positivity, good vibes only, and whoever these people were, they weren't very nice. What happened, she wondered. ¿Qué pasó? It turned out, on Twitter, a user named Lenny Briscoe, a reference to a Law and Order character that Hilaria, obviously, would never have known. Anyway, this fake Lenny Briscoe tweeted, "You have to admire Hilaria Baldwin's commitment to her decade-long grift, where she impersonates a Spanish person." The Twitter thread continued, as if this Lenny Briscoe was presenting her case to a Twitter grand jury. She exposed, tweet by tweet, Hilaria's accent inconsistencies, her non-Spanish heritage, and the sham performance she's put on all these years, including pretending not to know the word for cucumber. Hilaria's given name, her real name, was Hillary Thomas. She was not from Majorca. She'd scrubbed all mention of them in any of her bios, but her parents weren't Spanish. In fact, her father's family roots stretched all the way back to the Mayflower. It's true that her family did spend a lot of time in Majorca, and they have an appreciation for Spanish culture. But she was not herself of Spanish origin. which might explain why the sum total of her Spanish cultural references were flamenco, paella, and gazpacho. Now, back when this whole scandal broke, I remember thinking two things. Who was Hilaria Baldwin? And whoever she was, I'm glad it wasn't me. Because it could have been. My name is Nancy Miller. There was a time where I dreamed of being Nanette Millet, a French version of myself. The fantasy sounded fun, but the actual day-to-day of living as a fake French person would require a mental discipline and an emotional detachment of a KGB operative, or a sociopath, or maybe a competitive ballroom dancer. When she was in her teens and early 20s, Hilaria, back when she was just Hillary, was an expert Latin ballroom dancer. In pictures widely available online, she's wearing a flamenco-style look. Dyed black hair, slicked back into a bun, dress adorned with ruffles, her skin bronzed from head to toe with a spray tan. She's smiling for the crowd, but inside, underneath it all, the girl is in serious pain. Her back was killing her, her feet throbbed in agony, and she was severely malnourished. She struggled with disordered eating. She wrote about all of this in her wellness fitness book / memoir. She says two things fuel her perseverance: anger and passion. Now, these are two stereotypical Spanish traits, and on a superficial level, Hilaria, the Spanish dancer, offered a better, richer, more liberated life. At least compared to the uptight wasp life that Hillary was born into. When she had to decide between the two women, Hillary obviously had to go. But when and how did the real Hillary disappear and the fake Hilaria emerge? Online detectives, motivated by a passionate anger themselves, retraced her past as if it were an unsolved murder, a cold case that needed answers. When did Hilaria destroy Hillary? And how did she get away with it for over a decade? In simplest terms, Hillary was killed off in 2009. That was the year she changed her name permanently to Hilaria. It appears the clipped Spanish accent slipped on and off like a fake diamond tiara. She wore it when she wanted to feel special and took it off when she had to be real. And honestly, who wouldn't find a way to wear a tiara all of the time if we could? But heavy is the head that wears the crown. We know that fake Spanish Hilaria didn't grow up with TV. But I wonder if the real Hillary had ever watched Glengarry Glen Ross, one of Alec Baldwin's best movies. In that film, it's a bunch of middle-aged men desperate for a break, to change the hand they were given, to be bigger than who they are. And there's a line, delivered gruffly by Al Pacino. Never open your mouth until you know what the shot is. Which is to say, did Hillary realize when she opened her mouth and a fake Spanish accent came out that it was permanent? Did Hilaria plan to commit a lifelong fraud with whomever she ended up with? Or did she meet Alec Baldwin, have fun putting on a fake Spanish accent, and then find that it was just too late to turn back and tell the truth? Time and time again, Hilaria has blamed the media and her haters for intentionally muddling her story. These days, Hilaria and Hillary coexist in this awkward Spanglish limbo. And I imagine it's a lot like those ballroom days. All smiles in the picture, while underneath, the strain of it is killing her. She's made a couple of half-baked apologies, even said farewell from social media, for a little while anyway. But her detractors say it's not enough, and they're asking for her to come clean. To own that she lied about her background, posing as an Hispanic immigrant, even suggesting she experienced microaggressions as a woman of color to benefit personally and financially. It may not be illegal, they say, but it is a scam. Hilaria is likely to live on. Because, as she said in an interview, whatever people call her, it doesn't matter. Hillary and Hilaria mean the same thing: happy. But there's another Spanish word I know of, one that sounds like Hilaria, but means something else. It's the word hilar, and when you translate it into English, hilar means to spin. As for Alec, he stands by his wife. Whoever she is, it works for him. And if you've seen the headlines lately, you know Alec Baldwin's legal battles are much bigger than Hilaria's tall tales. And by the way, there's one more twist at the end of the story. The woman, the one that Alec Baldwin first had his eye on, the one who suggested he adopt a dog. After Alec met Hilaria, Sarma was herself lured into a high-profile romance scam, a truly disturbing story featured in the hit Netflix documentary Bad Vegan. But that's another grift for another day. For now, it's time to say goodnight. I'll be back next week with more true crime for bedtime. Until then, nighty-night.